So you are fresh in your role as a CI manager. What are the most important things to do in the first 90 days? Hello, I'm Tom. Welcome to my channel. We'll talk about continuous improvement in an industrial setting. And today's video is really about that continuous improvement and now the management of it. So I got this wonderful question on my video about what is the role of CI and the CI manager. And that is what to focus on during the first 90 days when you start as CI manager. And it is such a brilliant question, so thank you. The interesting thing is that right now I am in my first 30 days, so to say, of a 90-day interim CI management function. So you should think that I have this answer completely ready, but it really forced me to also think about what are those things. Now, a couple of the concepts I will be talking about, they come from the first 90 days. It's a guide for managers, both senior leaders, but also just department managers, how to start their management role in the first 90 days. A big part of that definitely is also applicable to the CI role, but there is a couple of specifics that I think really deserve thought. And I also say this because many of the other department managers might not really be aware of this CI role, not what it means for you as a CI manager. So let's dive into that, although I will say before we dive into this, there is, of course, every company is different. And also how your company sees the CI role can seriously differ company to company, situation to situation. So think about it, you need to be flexible. But the base premise, and I would say the ideal situation, is that the CI role, the CI manager, is a very strong sparring partner for general management. So the operations manager, the site director, this, let's say, the highest operational role that is there on site. Plant manager is also really common manager for the CI manager. And that direct support role, that really means that you have to be flexible in where you put your priorities. In general, it should of course be the performance excellence of the operation, but you also have the role of being the conscience and the sparring partner and a discussion partner for your manager, for the plant manager, the operational manager that you are dealing with. And this is partially because you don't really have a department. You might have a couple of CI specialists, but basically you are running around the whole factory as well. So generally financial and industrial controllers, they also have this role because they're not directly linked to the production, but they tend to have a very financial view on things. Not so strange, right? As a CI manager, you need to have that performance view on your whole operation and support in that. And that also brings us to the first part. It is super, super important that you align with your manager's goals. You need to know the plant manager, the operations manager, what are their goals, what do they expect you to do in the first year or so. Of course, also in the first 60 to 90 days, but specifically also what is this factory going towards? What are the change plans, the improvement plans? Where is the focus going to be? Now, at the same time, you really need to use the first 90 days to also get good connections with your colleagues. Maybe you are already from that plant, you worked in that team, but you probably now have a role in management. I always hope that the CI manager role is in the plant management, is in the management team of operations. That is the healthier place to be, especially since you are a direct sparring partner to the director operations manager. It's not always the case, but if you are now promoted to the management team, then you have a completely different role also to play within the broader organization, definitely also within the management team. But know that you need to really get good connections with all kinds of formal and informal leaders throughout the organization, because the CI manager, maybe again you have one or two direct reports, but you are hierarchically almost never a manager, but definitely a leader. You will have a lot of improvement projects that you should drive and support and go for, get people to get on board, step on board with all kinds of change programs, improvement programs. So you need to manage and lead, but you are almost never their manager. Even if somebody is put in your project, in your work stream for 3 or 4 months to do a project and they're freed up full time, during that time you manage them, but you don't do their end of year review. You don't decide, maybe a bit, but you don't really decide their career, right? So you are not their manager, generally. That means you need to know the people even better than when you would have your own team. And you also have to go broad in the organization. You are that glue that binds organizations, departments in the organization together. You can bridge between them, and you will need that to do effective improvement teams, improvement programs. With this, and we'll go a bit further mostly into the target side, but the main thing I want to give you is that during your first 90 days, and this goes double during your first 30 days, spend a lot of time on this. So if we're thinking on working towards goals and keeping time free for all kinds of things that pop up, 50-50 it. Spend no more, especially during the first 30 to 60 days, no more than 50% of your time on the predefined goals of getting to know the organization and doing improvements. When you are in really a CEO role or direct managing role in operations, that might shift a bit more towards getting results. It also depends on what we will be discussing in the STARS framework, but make sure that you keep time to just have a coffee discussion with one of your colleagues, to jump into something, to have some part of your agenda freed up for all kinds of random things. Somebody comes with a question, get into it. Somebody needs a little bit of help with a project, get into it. Somebody just wants an introduction or bounce some ideas. You have the time to check what is happening, because that way you will form that informal network, and you're learning of what the different organizations, the different departments within your organization are doing, what their priorities are, what their struggles are. It's going to be so much faster. But when we then come to that 50% that you should be planning, there is a main thing that you should be checking in your organization, and that is, I divide it a bit into 3 lenses. 2 of them are generally considered to be the performance excellence balance. One of them is a bit more special because of your role as the CI manager. And those are the performance, the capability, and the CI management. Now, we, for performance excellence, quite often speak of the balance between the performance of an organization and the capabilities we have in an organization. Now, if you see a factory that has brilliant performance, and they've really improved year over year, the output, reduced cost, they have very low defect rates, especially also when compared to others in the industry, but they don't have a normal daily control cycle. They don't really have work standards. They don't really have a training program. So the capabilities, the organizational and learning capabilities of this organization are very low. That means that this high performance level will be supported by only a few individuals. And there is a big chance that it will fall. And it will fall deep at some point when somebody leaves, or when the market changes a bit, or when something happens that just the whole house of cards comes tumbling down if you don't really have capabilities in your organization. Now, the other side is that we have organizations that are very good in autonomous management, and they have a wonderful quality management system. They have very frequent meetings. They have a lot of action lists. They have involvement of management also outside of the operational line. In short, they have very strong operational capabilities, but they perform, bottom of the class. They are just more expensive than comparable industries, than other factories within the same company than last year, making a lot of mistakes, becoming slow, becoming expensive. Those two, they should be in alignment. And this is really also something you should check during your onboarding period as a CI manager. Where is my factory? How are we performance-wise? How are we capability-wise? Can we, for instance, can plenty of people within the organization do root cause analysis? Are we good at improving? But also, do we focus on the actual performance, the actual improvement? When we do a team, does it also give a performance boost? Things like that, and the balance also with that. Very important to think about. Now, when you are doing these two, also discuss it with your manager, because in my experience, managers also have a strong preference for one of the two. Maybe also a bit on the management side, but most managers really lean towards, I want good performance and everything is about performance. I don't really care which systems we're going to use for it, as long as they give me performance. Let's get results in the short term. And then they don't really build in the sustainability. Some other managers, they really build those systems. They get through all the audits perfectly. If some ISO audit comes in, it's like, wow, we're going to take your quality management system and use it as training material for our ISO standard. But at the same time, they got a lot more expensive over the years. There is a preference, and you should, as the CI manager, know where the organization is leaning, where your manager is leaning, and give a bit of a counterweight to it. So of course, don't immediately go the other way. It's team, but know that you are the balance and the conscience for the operational manager. So lean a bit the other way. Now, the third circle I drew is when we are checking an organization, consider it to be part of the capabilities. And this is the CI management. I will add the CI as well. It is specifically how your department, because you are the CI manager, how are your things managed? This is your department, but this is mainly how are you managing root cause analysis teams? This whole problem-solving effort. How is it picked up? Who then manages this? And do we get results? Do we give them support? How do we have this control loop also supported so that the different parts of that control loop can really function? Now, the quality of the control loop is, as I said, generally considered to be part of the capabilities of the organization. But now really check who is assisting those root cause analysis leaders. Who is assisting supervisors and team leaders to make the correct choices, to get the data, but also to structure from whom are they going to get answers when they send a team out to do something. How do we check their progress in a good way? The same with improvement teams. This is generally the more structured approach, because you have an improvement agenda, you set out which teams are we going to do, you define that there is a team and a group, and maybe you have a project charter, but do they actually get support? So what I see a bit too often as well is that there is a year plan, and then every department manager just sort of has to fix their own stuff, make sure that their improvement teams are working, and we only check the performance outputs. You want to know this when you are starting, because if you can make sure that these two, so the way that we check KPIs and focus on the target, and also focus on are we getting savings or improvements, and the way how we manage that process, how we make sure that maybe an AM team is working and supported, but also the supervisors who can do a root cause analysis, the improvement teams who somehow report back through a management layer to the site management, and they get their support, and they present in a way that is not too much of an administrative burden, but it does get them on the agenda. Things like this. How do you as a factory, as an organization, make sure that all these aspects of continuous improvement are managed and communicated, super important to know, because if you can improve that, you are doing an ace job. If you can improve that within already your first 90 days, you don't even really have to improve the performance as much yet for most managers, because you show that you are moving in the right direction. They will feel, the management, but also broader colleagues, that they suddenly understand what's happening. They feel more control of the improvement objectives, of the improvement initiatives, and they see that you give them support, that you give them a structure, and that you can make them heard. And that means that more people will be motivated to do those improvements, to come with ideas, to work on root cause analysis, problem solving, improvement stuff. That is really going to boost the standing of CI within your organization if it is currently weak. So what you do is those freelancers check what will need your attention, and you need to balance them. You want to be nicely in the middle. Now, I cannot tell you what performance improvement is balanced with which level of AM implementation, but many corporate, because that is different for each company, for each factory, but many corporates do actually give you guidelines. So I've worked for a company where it was, if you have a year-on-year reduction, a saving on your conversion cost of about 1.5% to 2%, based on the usage, so it sort of offsets inflation back in the years that we had those levels of inflation. But if you can do that, then you are at a pretty good level performance-wise. Then we expect capability-wise that you also have a fully working performance control system, daily control system, and that you have implemented AM up until level 3, so step 3, on most of your lines. So and there was a whole book of, what do we expect performance-wise and capability-wise as sort of growing together. If you have something like that, give it a read through. They are not written in stone, those things, but they give a good idea of how you can think about balancing it for your organization. And see if the CI management is better than the performance management and the improvement in general, then probably it doesn't need so much attention. But if you see that actually teams are struggling, they're not really communicating throughout the organization, big thing to focus on. Now, that aside, right, these are what you need to focus on, with also your manager's goals, to keep aligned on that. There are these different levels, and this comes straight from the first 90 days for all managers, and it's a good way to think about where is your organization. You can use it for a number of aspects broadly in your organization. Where are we on people management? Where are we on production? Things like that. Also specifically these three. And it is the idea that there are different levels, different ways in how do we need to change it or keep it. Where are we in sort of a from start to mature to need to turn it around way of thinking. And they are. Are you still more or less in a startup organization? Have we got a turnaround where things really need to change or you'll die basically? Do we need to accelerate growth? So we're basically doing fine, but now you really need to get the CI program running or get lines up and running and expand. Do we need to realign? So it's basically going well, but some things need to change slightly, and we need to get ourselves back to chasing some goal. Or do we need to sustain success? So doing very well, we just know that this level doesn't come for free. We need to keep it that way. This is a good way, the STARS framework, to look at an organization in general. And that's why it is in the 90 days, the first 90 days for any manager. This is very important in sort of the culture you can expect, right? If you have a startup-like organization, you're going to be in a totally different management style, communication style, than when you need to sustain success or even when you need to accelerate growth. That is different from a startup. And you can think about this for the organization, discuss it with your management team peers. It's a good thing to discuss your organization in this framework from time to time, but also specifically on CI. So if we are looking at the Performance Excellence Continuous Improvement program, where is it? Are you just starting it up with a couple people doing a few 5S projects, maybe a little bit of improvement, just to get the feel for it and maybe build it out in a bit? Or do you have an old program that basically got a really bad rap? It just sort of died down and you need to completely reinvigorate it, turn around how you use CI within your organization, or accelerate it. I mean, sort of going well, but we're doing CI with 2 CI specialists, and what we actually want to be doing is get 15 of our colleague operators, engineers, mechanics, whatever, a little bit part-time here, do lots of small teams, make sure you get that momentum. Can be a definite thing needed to accelerate. If we are more in the TPM mode, are we about to start up pillars and really expand how many improvement projects we're going to be running at the same time? This will require completely different focus from the management team, who, when it's just starting up, was able to basically guide all of the improvement efforts personally, just a couple of teams per person, and now we'll have to get the system going and have team leaders trained who can, run this stuff. Realignment, especially if you see that there is a serious disbalance between the performance and the capability building aspects. If you have a factory that has a strong culture of focusing a lot on performance, they've been in a continuous improvement mindset for the last 5 or so years, where performance was the main goal. They've been hunting losses, they've been working on OEE. They have not been building those time wasters like a good daily meeting. Then there is a big chance that you will need to realign. Of course, you don't decide this by yourself, right? This is a management decision, but if you need to realign those things, you're in a culture change. Also, very different situation from the others. Or did you inherit a good CI organization with a program that's nicely working? You've got a 3-year roadmap of improvement initiatives. You have a couple of people throughout the organization or in your own team who are good experts at continuous improvement, who lead some teams, and your main task is to just continue all that good work, to take over from somebody who put a nice framework in place. Maybe you were already part of the team, and now you got promoted when your predecessor went to another position. It can be that you just need to sustain the success. This is a discussion you should be having, definitely with your direct manager, but also with your peers. How do they see the continuous improvement role and the current continuous improvement organization? And not just your department, but how we do Kaizen, how we do continuous improvement in our factory, and some of the different systems. In which phase are we? And what does that mean going forward? And what do they, as your peers, managers that you will definitely need from the other departments, what do they expect you to do with continuous improvement in the next half year? Very good framework to use for that discussion, to get that info from your direct colleagues. So, to sum it all up, in the first 90 days as a CI manager, make sure you get to know your colleagues, because you'll be needing a lot of informal leadership and clout with them. Spend a good portion of time on that, but also spend a serious portion of time with the goals and the performance of your factory. So the operations manager, your direct manager most likely, is of course a key stakeholder, right? That is guaranteed. But check how they see this balance in how much attention to performance, how much attention to capability building, Do you also agree with that? And maybe does corporate agree with that as well? So there might be some rebalancing here. Then also see how you think that this is currently going. It might be that the actual results are very different from the intended results. Check how your CI activities are managed and at what stage are both the organization, but definitely also the specific CI activities that your company is doing at your location. And with that, you get a very nice overview of what to do. Now, do make sure that within the first 90 days, you make 2 or so improvements somewhere here. Show them your worth. If you can make a strong improvement, especially on the more of the communication and CI management side, very visible, think about that, right? If your boss really, really values direct results, so real performance results, try and improve some aspect, some improvement theme that hasn't been going too well, and just get some results. But I would say that most of the time, your best bet is to improve something in this communication flow, especially on the CI management side, if that was not so strong before, because it's very visible. Improve communication between departments, get some sort of enabling improvement project or any project that people were doing, get it nicely organized, make sure that they get the support that they maybe weren't getting before, and you're going to make people happy. And they will see that with you on the CI role, they can work more efficiently. They can get their stuff done, right? They can do an improvement project and know that you will be helping them remove obstacles in front of them. If you get that rolling, you have a very strong start to your CI management role, and you can use that later on, that goodwill, but also that trust, to build further. The CI management role is generally not for the short-term gain. You need to build it up over a bit longer time. Generally, you don't immediately need to show money results. You need to show that you can guide and support. So there you have it. If you like that discussion, that idea, don't forget to hit that like button. Also, this came directly out of a viewer question. If you have those, put them in the comments below. I do think that at some point I will add some more to this when my learning also continues. But this is the most important I can distill at this moment from how you start up a CI management role. I wish you the best of luck in that role. And as always, don't forget to enjoy the continuous improvement journey.